I'm here today to continue the discussion regarding using picture books in curriculum in middle school and high school. A couple of colleagues of mine have already spoken to you about using science picture books and music picture books in curriculum. And I'm here today to talk about using books in the genre of literature. The books I'm going to talk about today would be appropriate for 7th graders through high school. We're going to start with this book called The Three Pigs by David Weisner. Obviously, it's very familiar as a title because we know of the fairy tale, The Three Little Pigs. David Weisner actually won the Caldecott Medal for this particular book in 2002. And that award was actually the author's second win. This book obviously starts out like The Three Little Pigs, tells the story about the three little pigs. However, halfway through the story, the pigs themselves change the story. The wolf actually eats the pigs, but somehow they come back alive and they change the story. What's interesting about this is when they're changing the story, they literally rip apart the pages of their story. So as you can see here, they're coming out of the pages of the book. The pigs are alive, and this here is one page of the book. And as you go through, the illustrations literally show them coming out of the pages and stamping on the pages. They actually change their fate in this book. What I found great about this is they also then pull in characters from other fairy tales. And I won't tell you which fairy tales they are. But what I found interesting was that when a student reads this, they can think about, well, why is this written in this way? Why do the pigs change the story? Obviously, they want to change their story, but in this way, why do they change it? How does it get changed? Why do they pull in characters from other fairy tales? And why did they choose those specific fairy tales to pull the characters from? In curriculum, students can read this and then talk about the likenesses and differences between this and other stories about the Three Little Pigs. And there are many actual examples of other picture books for these grade levels that can also be used for comparing and contrasting the books. For instance, we have The Three Little Cajun Pigs by Bertha Amos. There is The Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf by Glenn Rounds, and The Story of the Three Little Pigs by John Seska. Students can compare and contrast those, and then they can also, perhaps in a creative writing class, change their own fairy tale, child's folk tale themselves. They can pick a folk tale that we already know and then change it and write their own story, as the author did in this story. Great example of creative writing, contrasts and similarities, and why an author writes the way they are. What is the message the author is trying to tell us with this? We have another book here called The Widow's Broom. This is also another fairy tale, a different kind of fairy tale, but a fairy tale nonetheless. It has a witch, it has magic, and it has a happy ending. In this case, the author, this was written by Chris Van Allsburg. This author chose an inanimate object as its focal point for the story, The Widow's Broom. Students can read this. It's a great picture book. Again, a fast story, black and white, so sort of like a sepia tone pictures in the book. When they read this, students can then think about, again, why did the author choose to write a book around a broom? What is the significance of this? Why is the broom the main character of the story? What does the broom represent? There are people in the book who are fearful of the broom, and then there's an older woman in the book who is not fearful of the broom. And there's a happy ending to the story. You wonder why people are afraid of the broom. Does it relate to real life? What are we afraid of? Something that we don't understand? So questions like that students can think about in an ELA class, a creative writing class, and sort of think about using picture books. Why do authors write what they're writing? What are they trying to tell us? Why are they doing this? So I thought this was another great idea to get students thinking about what is the message that authors are trying to tell us when they write these books. We also have, this book was great. This is called The Wolves in the Walls, written by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Dave McKeon. Excellent illustrations in this. As you can see, very colorful, very dramatic pictures. This book is about a girl and her family, and the girl thinks there are wolves in the walls. Her family doesn't believe her. In fact, each member of the family believes that the wolves aren't wolves, but necessarily something else in the walls. Nobody can agree on what they hear in the walls. Nobody can understand why they're there. And in fact, the big question they ask is, you know what they say, if the wolves come out of the walls, it's all over. This theme is discussed throughout the book, and in fact, when the family gets so frightened by the wolves that they leave the house, the wolves come into the house, and the family comes back, and now the family is in the walls, and the wolves say the same thing. You know what they say, if the humans come out of the walls, it's all over. Students can question, what do we mean by it's? What is it's? It's all over. What does that mean? Again, in an ELA class, we can talk about, why did the author write this? What is the significance of something being in the walls? And when the story flips and the humans are in the walls, what do we mean by that as well? Again, another great example of using picture books that may not only maybe more than 30 or 40 pages long, really fast reads that can really delve into something deeper than just a nice story. So it's another great example. Finally, we have this book called Black and White by David Macaulay. This is another Caldecott Medal Award winner. This book is interesting. There are seemingly 4 different stories, and each story is actually, you read each story on each page. So for instance, this is what one of the pages looks like. You can see that the book is broken out into 4 sections. Each section is a different story. So every time you flip the page, you have to read part of one story, part of the second story, part of the third story, and part of the 4th story. Each page has a little bit of each story. This might be a little bit more advanced for 7th, 8th graders. I would say more high school students could really understand this. It's very confusing. 4 different stories, and in fact, they all come together at the end. So it's a good example of having students figure out, why did the author write it this way? How does it make it interesting? Does it make it more confusing? Does it make it more fascinating? Do you wonder where they're going with it? What's fabulous about this book too is there's a lot in it. A lot of the illustrations, such as the cover, black and white. That's the name of the title. However, the drawing itself is not in black and white. Students can question, why is that? Why did the author and the illustrator write the book in this way? On the back, one of the stories are about cows. You can see here it's a picture of a cow, but if you look closer, there's also what would be like the spot on the cow's body is a picture of a human being. Students can wonder, what does that mean? Why did the illustrator write this book in such a way that it looks like a cow and yet it also looks like a human being? In this book, some of the characters actually go through a change from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. And you can ask students, why is that? They can delve into this and question it. There are a lot of characters that go from one story, one seemingly separate story, to another story. They can wonder why that is. What is the significance of it? So this is just another great example of students looking at literature in a different way. Instead of reading a very long novel, they can realize that, wow, picture books aren't just for younger children. There are authors out there who write picture books for young adults who can then really delve into it and question what the author and the illustrator is trying to get at. What is the message behind these books? So I hope you would consider books like these in an ELA, literature class, a creative writing class, to show students a different type of book that they can really think about and wonder about, and think about literature in a different way and get another idea of trying to understand the message that authors are trying to tell us. Thank you.